If we want to draw out the graph of y equals cos of x, we work it the exact same way as we did for the graph of y equals sine of x, except we use x values from the unit circle. So this is my unit circle. I'm going to label my x values. So my x values are 1, 0, -1, and 0. So I start at the eastern point, which is the point 1, 0, and this is going to be 0 degrees. I move anti-clockwise to 90 degrees. I continue anti-clockwise to 180 degrees. I continue anti-clockwise to 270 degrees. And I continue anti-clockwise back to 0 degrees, which is also 360 degrees. So when I'm plotting points on my graph, I'm going to match up 0 degrees with 1 because my x value is 1, 90 degrees and 0 because my x value is 0, 180 degrees and -1 because my x value is -1, 270 degrees and 0 because my x value is 0, and 360 degrees and 1 because my x value is 1. So my x-axis is labelled 0, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, 360 degrees. I need to label my y-axis. I need to go up as far as 1 and -1. So remember, I start in the east, so I start with an x value of 1. It's actually going to match up with my y-axis at 1 and 0 degrees. So I have 0 degrees on my x-axis and 1 on my y-axis. Then I move anti-clockwise, so I'm going to have 90 degrees and 0. So I plot that point. I continue anti-clockwise, I have 180 degrees and -1. So I plot that point. I continue anti-clockwise, I have 270 degrees and 0. And I continue anti-clockwise, and I have 360 degrees and 1. And I plot that point. Now it looks like a V shape, but we know that the graphs of y equals sine of x and cos of x are curves, so we have to make sure that we have a curve, not a point. So we join our points together with a curve, and we have the graph of y equals cos of x. So remember, if you're using the unit circle to draw out the graph, you're going to use the x values from the unit circle. Whereas if you're drawing out the graph of y equals sine of x, you would use the y values. Now we're going to draw the graph of y equals cos of x using the trigonometric ratios of certain angles from the formula tables. So my x-axis is labelled 0, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees and 360 degrees. I'm going to label my y-axis as 1 and -1. So I'm going to go to my tables and I'm going to go to the row that has cos of A, and I'm going to use these values. So 0 degrees, I go up to 1 on the y-axis. 90 degrees, I go down to 0. 180 degrees, I go down to -1. 270 degrees, I go up to 0. And for 360 degrees, I know that it matches up with 0 degrees in a circle. So I go to 0 degrees, and I see that that matches up with 1. So I go to 360 degrees, and I go up as far as 1 on the y-axis. Now I join together my points with a curve. And now I have the graph of y equals cos of x. Now we're going to graph y equals cos of x, but this time instead of 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees and so on, we're going to use radians. So instead, well, we're going to still have 0 in place of 0 degrees, but in place of 90 degrees we're going to have pi over 2, in place of 180 degrees we're going to have pi, in place of 270 degrees we're going to have 3 pi over 2, and in place of 360 degrees we're going to have 2 pi. So again, we're going to use the x values from the unit circle. So our x values are 1, 0, -1, and 0. So we start in the east and we move anti-clockwise. So we're going to have 0 for the point 1, 0. We move anti-clockwise to what would be 90 degrees, but we're going to write it in radians, so it's going to be pi over 2. Then we continue anti-clockwise to what would be 180 degrees, which is equal to pi. Then we continue anti-clockwise to what will be 270 degrees. We're going to have 3 pi over 2. And then we continue anti-clockwise to what would be 360 degrees, and we're going to have 2 pi. So when we're plotting our points, remember we start with 0, and we're going to use our x value, which is 1. So we're going to have 0 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. But first we need to label our y-axis, so we're going up as far as 1 and down as far as -1. So we're going to start with 0, 1. Then we continue anti-clockwise, and we're going to have pi over 2, 0. Then we continue anti-clockwise, and we're going to have pi -1. Then we continue anti-clockwise, and we're going to have 3 pi over 2, 0. And then we continue anti-clockwise, and we're going to have 2 pi, 1. And then we plot our points together using a curve. And now we have the graph of y equals cos of x. So now we're going to draw the graph y equals cos of x using radians for our x-axis, and also using our trigonometric ratios of certain angles from our formula and tables. So I'm going to start by labelling my y-axis 1 and -1, and I'm going to go to my cos of A row and highlight the values that I'm going to use. And next I'm going to plot my points. So I'm going to use my radians row, and I'm going to have 0 and 1. Next I have pi over 2 and 0. Next I have pi and -1. Next I have 3 pi over 2 and 0. And next I have 2 pi, which I know is equal to 360 degrees, which is in the same position as 0 degrees on my circle, which is in the same position as 0. So I go back to 0 on my radians, and I have 1 for my cos of A, so I'm going to go to 1 on the y-axis. Now I have my points plotted, I join them together with a curve. And now I have the graph of y equals cos of x.